I work at a mid-sized IT company in Bangalore. The job offer felt like a door with light behind it. Stable pay, decent title, a team that called itself high-performing. Back then I thought that meant we ran fast because we cared. Months. Later I learned it meant we ran until something tore. For the first quarter I did everything right. I answered pings after midnight. I learned the code base on weekends. I volunteered for the ugliest tickets because visibility sounded like a shortcut to safety. I laughed at jokes from people who signed expense reports. I said yes to estimates everyone in the room knew were fiction. On paper, I looked productive. Off paper, I carried a permanent ache behind my eyes and a coffee stomach that gurgled like an old server rack. Last Monday, my body quit before my mind did. I stood to get water, felt the floor tilt, and then the ceiling pressed down like a hand. I woke to an IV drip and a nurse saying my name as if it might slide off the bed and break. Severe dehydration, gastritis, stress. Words that sound routine until they are yours. The doctor wanted me under observation for 24 hours, longer if my numbers argued. While they adjusted the drip, muscle memory reached for my phone. I typed one clean line to my boss. I'm in the hospital, I won't be able to make it to work today. I stared at it, wanting to add detail, proof, apology. I didn't. I pressed send. His reply arrived before the screen dimmed. Okay, please. Send the report when you return so HR can adjust your sick leave. Don't forget we have the client call tomorrow. Try to join if possible. That was it. Not even a question mark to pretend concern. 4 instructions in a row like machine output. I read it twice, then a third time out loud to the beeping room. It sounded like a stamped form. It sounded like I had informed a bot that manages chairs. My parents arrived fast because parents move faster than Wi-Fi when the word hospital appears. My mother took my hand as if heat could travel skin to organ. My father read the message and clicked. His tongue, his version of all the words you shouldn't say near machines that keep people alive. This is not management, he said. This is metering. When they went for tea, I opened Reddit. I took a screenshot, blurred names like the internet taught me, and posted on our anti-work. Boss's reply when I texted I'm in the hospital. I expected a few comments and a polite echo. Instead, the phone filled with little red bricks of attention. Top comment. That's not a boss, that's a KPI dashboard pretending to be a person. Another. Imagine replying to a hospital admission like you're confirming a calendar. Invite. A nurse wrote that her supervisor texted during her grandmother's funeral to ask if she could quickly swap a shift. A teacher wrote that her principal wanted grades from an ER. A courier described sending got hit by a car and receiving 3 question marks. Relief and sadness walked in together. Relief because it wasn't just me. Sadness because it was everyone. Threads formed patterns. Headcount, bandwidth, utilization, velocity. People as units. Emergencies as disruptions. Someone wrote, when performance is the only language, empathy sounds like a foreign dialect you forget under pressure. I saved that line like a contact. By evening, a small local site ran a piece about workplace empathy and embedded my blurred screenshot. They didn't name me or the company. They didn't need to. My boss pinged. Can you stop by tomorrow? He wore the face manager's practice, concern arranged around caution. I didn't mean to come across as uncaring, he said. I was focused on keeping client deliverables on track. Health comes first. Take care of yourself. The commas were audible. The sentences fit like they'd been tried on in a mirror. Maybe HR handed him the script. Maybe he wrote it for himself and underlined the parts that made him safe. I nodded because nodding costs less than arguing. But something inside me had shifted slots. I finally understood the only lever I can always reach boundary. I cannot program empathy into someone else. I can decide how much of my life I put on the table when they forget theirs. Back home, I opened my resume. I added the metrics the market buys, reduced build times by 23%, automated flaky tests, unblocked a migration, mentored 2 interns. I did not add, learned the number of dots in a hospital ceiling tile. I did not add, chose myself in a room that asked for the opposite. Reddit kept arguing with itself. A few said, okay is neutral, that my boss was efficient, that I was sensitive. Others wrote manifestos about capitalism and care. I read them all, but the noise couldn't touch the simple fact living under my sternum. I wanted one sentence he didn't send. Are you okay? The next morning I joined the client call because habit is a long wire. I smiled with my voice and said on track and muted to cough. Afterward, he sent a thumbs up emoji. That tiny yellow hand landed like a stamp on my forehead. Paid. Something quiet in me stood up and walked out. I stopped accepting meetings without agendas. I turned off Slack on my phone after 8. I documented my hours like I was auditing a stranger. I applied to 9 roles before the weekend. I taped a note beneath my monitor where only I can see it. You are not a ticket. My dad called to ask if I'd eaten. When I told him about the apology, he grunted a sound that meant both of course and too late. If you ever lead people, he said, remember your mother's face when she saw you in that bed. Use that face as your first sentence. Over. The next week I noticed how the building sounds change when you stop sprinting. The AC has a hum with 2 notes. The pantry kettle lies about boiling. People lower their voices for bad news, but not for good news. The calendar invites stack in polite pastel colors that suggest they won't hurt you. They will if you let them. I wrote an update on Reddit. Discharged and recovering. Looking for new opportunities. Not expecting flowers, just expecting to be spoken to like a person. Someone replied, he won't remember that text, you will. It's true, for him it was a procedural ping. For me it was a mirror and I didn't like the posture. I started rehearsing my resignation even though my bank app suggested patience. I am not a movie. I can't storm out with a speech and land in a loft full of plants. I have rent. I have responsibilities, but I also have a threshold now measured in questions not asked. If I end up leading a team, the metric I'll defend harder than uptime will be the one you can't chart. How fast we say, are you okay? When life enters the room. People keep asking whether my boss changed. He didn't. He returned to deadlines, to numbers, to emoji approvals. Maybe he tells himself he cares in the margins. Maybe he does and the system rounds it down. Either way, I'm not waiting for a patch update to fix his firmware. Here is what changed. I switched from apologizing for my needs to scheduling them. I eat lunch without reading specs. I walk outside once a day without pretending it's a meeting. I keep water at my desk and treat it like work. I write realistic estimates and put my name on them. When someone pushes past a boundary, I write the timestamp and the words they used. A little log for the future that says you were here and you saw it. Last night I lay awake and replayed the scene in the hospital, trying to locate the exact moment. Frustration turned into clarity. It wasn't the text itself. It was the space where a human sentence should have been. Silence around pain teaches you to speak for yourself. So I am. If you're hearing this because you're in a similar chair, with a similar beeping rhythm, here is the line I wish someone had handed me earlier. Your job is not a spine you must wear at all times. You can set it down and still stand up. You can ask for decency and still deliver. You can choose human and still be excellent. On Monday, I will send 2 emails. The first will confirm an interview with a team that asked me about my weekends before, my commits. The second, when the numbers align, will be my notice. It will be calm and brief. It will not include the ceiling tiles or the drip or my parents' faces. It will include gratitude for lessons learned and a last line that is only for me. I am not a resource. And if I ever receive a message that begins, I'm in the hospital, I know the order of operations. Empathy first. Logistics second. Because everything that truly matters fits into one small immediate question. Are you okay? Everything else can wait. Weeks later, when the hospital bill arrived, I read it at my kitchen table with a glass of water I actually finished. The number was uncomfortable but not catastrophic. I paid it, filed the receipt, and sat in the quiet. I realized I could track this expense like any other, but the real cost had been paid earlier. In attention, in sleep, in sentences I owed myself and finally spoke.